Welcome back to Spring Into Math 5. This is Mr. Stein with you as always, and today we're going to multiply fractions and mixed numbers. Okay, so we're going to multiply fractions and mixed numbers. So you've already learned how to add and subtract fractions, but when you have a fraction and you want to figure out part of the fraction, you're going to need to multiply. So remember that a fraction is part of a whole. So multiplying fractions is always at least a two-step process. First, you line up the two fractions next to each other, and then you're ready to start multiplying. So you can see here I have 1/2 times 4/5. Now you can notice that also that I have the dot representing the multiplication sign. You're going to start seeing these things interchangeably as you progress through math. So you have to multiply twice, and that's why I was talking about two steps. Well, it's really three because then you have to reduce potentially. But so first, you're going to multiply the numerators and write the product of the numerators above the fraction bar. That sounds complicated. Look, take the top numbers, multiply those things together, put the number on top of the line. That's really all it was. Then you're going to multiply the denominators and write the product underneath the fraction bar. Same thing. Bottom numbers, multiply them together, put them under the fraction bar, under the line. Now, you don't have to find common denominators. Woohoo, I know, that's such a relief. So you do, however, have to reduce your answers to simplest form. But you know what? You had to do that anyways with adding and subtracting. So that's a huge step off when you're talking about multiplying fractions, that you don't have to worry about finding common denominators. So we usually think of multiplying as increasing, and we talked about this in previous videos. But don't be surprised when you get a product that is smaller than one of the factors that you're multiplying. Okay, because you're shrinking something when you're talking about a fraction of something. So let's try one out. So we have 1/2 times 4/5. Now, you have 1 times 4, because you remember I talked about multiplying those top numbers, so you're going to multiply them across. 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 5 is 10. Now, you have 4/10. So you can't forget to reduce those. So you have 4/10, you have to think, what is the largest number that they share? Well, the largest number can only be as big as the top number, or the smallest number rather, but typically it's going to be the top number. So it can only be as big as 4. Well, does 4 go into 10? It does not. 3 doesn't go into 10. Well, 2 does. So now you're going to divide both the top and the number by, the top and the bottom number by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So you get 2/5. So 1/2 times 4/5 is 2/5. If you think about it logically, think about it like this. Well, if I have 4/5, half of it would be, well, 2 of the fifths. Okay, what about a fraction and a whole number? I love these. These are fun. So when you multiply a fraction and a whole number, we have to make the whole number into a fraction. So then we're going to multiply across just as you would with two fractions, and finally simplify your answer if it's possible. All right, so let's look at 5 times 1/2. Okay, so to make 5 a fraction, all we have to do is essentially make it an improper fraction. Put 5 over 1, because if we were putting it into a mixed number or figuring it out, we'd say 5 divided by 1 goes in 5 times. 5 would be my whole number. So whole numbers are represented by just putting that number over a 1, and it doesn't change the value of 5, but it makes it a fraction. So now I have 5 over 1 times 1/2. Well, I just multiply it across. So I have 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 5 halves. Now, I have to think about it. I can't leave it as 5 halves. So I have to turn that improper fraction back into a mixed number. So I have 5 divided by 2. Well, it's going to go in 2 times with 1 left over. So my 2 is my whole number of 2. And then I put 1 over the 2. So I have 2 and 1/2. Okay, so now, what we were talking about at the intro. How do we multiply mixed numbers? All right, because mixed numbers involve wholes and parts, multiplying mixed numbers requires an extra step. It's essential. I mean, when I say essential, it's mandatory that you convert a mixed number into an improper fraction before you multiply. It makes life so much easier. If you don't do it, you're in a world of hurt. So let's take a look. Once you have that mixed number in the improper fraction form, you're going to multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. If you have an improper fraction as your product, convert it back to a mixed number, as your final answer. Now, if you're converting mixed numbers into improper fractions and multiplying, you're going to have an improper fraction because the top number is going to be bigger because it's two improper fractions and you're multiplying those two numbers together. So when you're multiplying two mixed numbers, count on having to convert it to improper fractions and then getting your product and converting that back to a mixed number. All right, so let's take a look at one. We have 3 1/2 times 2 1/3. All right, so first we're going to convert to improper fractions. We take our denominator, times our whole number plus our numerator. So we have 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7, all over our denominator of 2. So we have 7 halves. Then we look at the same thing. Our denominator 3 times 2, our whole number, plus 1, our numerator, gives you 7, and you put that over 2 as well. So now I have 7 halves times 7 halves. Okay, next we're going to multiply our two improper fractions. We have 7 times 7 is 49, and 2 times 3 is 6. Now we have 49 sixths. Like I said, you're going to get an improper fraction, and you're going to have to convert that. So we're going to convert that back into a mixed number. So we have to think, 49 divided by 6. How many times does 6 go into 49? Well, it's going to go in 8 times, because 6 times 8 is, well, 48. So you're going to have 1 left over as your remainder. So then we have 8 as our whole number. Our remainder of 1 goes on top of our denominator of 6. So we have 8 and 1/6. Okay, that's going to wrap up this process. Remember, when you're multiplying two mixed numbers, make sure you convert them to improper fractions, and then unfortunately, it's going to be a larger improper fraction that you're going to convert back to a mixed number. Take your time. I know you're going to do great.